When your children walk out the door and the house finally becomes quiet, why does your heart suddenly feel heavier than it ever has? If you've been exhausted, unmotivated, or ready to quit learning English, this story is for you. Today I'll show you how an empty nest can become a full heart, and how learning English can open a new love story, a new purpose, and a new voice you didn't know you still had. The empty doorway moment. Imagine this. The door closes behind your child, and in one breathless moment of silence, you realize your heart wasn't ready for the emptiness that followed. No one tells you that the empty nest isn't just a phase. It feels like a free fall, where your routines, your rhythm, and even your confidence get pulled into a cold, unfamiliar space. And then almost automatically your mind begins asking questions you've been avoiding your whole life. Who am I now when no one needs me? What is my purpose? And why has learning English suddenly become so painfully difficult? Did you know this? When your children leave home, your brain activates something called silent stress, a quiet form of emotional overload that directly affects your memory, focus, and ability to absorb language. That's why you open an English learning video and the words seem to dance. Why listening feels like water slipping through your fingers. Why reading even a simple sentence feels like your brain is swimming against the current. You're not slow. You're not incapable. Your brain is simply panicking because its familiar rhythm has disappeared. In other words, your nervous system is crying on your behalf. And there you stand in front of that closed door, feeling like two versions of yourself are existing at once. One version trying to be strong. One version wanting to give up. But in this exact moment, another truth begins to reveal itself. Maybe this isn't the end. Maybe this is an invitation. An invitation to start a new story with a new voice, in a language you once thought you could never master. Have you ever considered that learning to listen, read, and speak English isn't just about language, but about rediscovering yourself? When your children leave, the house becomes empty, but something inside you begins to open. And sometimes the only thing you need to fill that space isn't someone returning, but you stepping forward with a stronger, clearer, more confident voice. That moment at the empty doorway is the first chapter. A chapter that whispers, you still have a story to live. And English is simply the first door. Silence that reveals truth. Have you ever noticed that silence, when it lingers long enough, isn't just empty space but a mirror reflecting everything you've been avoiding? After your children leave without laughter or familiar footsteps, you stand in a quiet room and ask yourself, what am I doing with my life? How many dreams and opportunities have I ignored while taking care of others? This very silence delivers a subtle but powerful wake-up call, forcing you to face the truth about yourself. Psychology shows that when children leave home, stress hormones like cortisol can rise, amplifying feelings of loneliness and anxiety. Your brain starts filtering every piece of information through a risk lens, which is why opening an English book or watching a listening video suddenly feels uncomfortable, distracting, or makes you feel inadequate. This explains why many adults give up learning a foreign language during the empty nest phase. It's not a lack of ability. It's your body and mind reacting naturally to emotional emptiness, and that quiet room, you begin to hear questions you never asked. If I don't have to care for anyone else, how will I care for myself? And here is the turning point. Realizing the truth also reveals opportunity. The space your children leave isn't an ending. It's room for you to explore unfinished dreams, and within that, practicing listening, reading, and speaking English becomes a healing journey. For example, I remember evenings sitting alone, headphones on, listening to slow English podcasts, trying to repeat every sentence. At first, my mind resisted. Feelings of loneliness and frustration were overwhelming. But after a few weeks, word by word, sentence by sentence, things started to click. And simultaneously, the loneliness began to fade, replaced by confidence and joy in discovery. Your brain responds according to neuroplasticity, the ability to form new neural connections, making it easier to learn a language when you consistently take small steps. The key point is, silence is not your enemy. It's a mirror, a signal showing where you haven't grown, where you haven't cared for yourself. And learning English in this moment isn't just about language, it's about rediscovering yourself, finding your own voice, your own rhythm, and starting a new chapter for your heart. The truth is revealed in silence, but you get to choose the answer. Give up or step forward. And the journey of English is the first door leading you to a new story. A story filled with love for yourself. A heart trying to speak. Have you ever felt your heart suddenly wanting to speak, but not knowing where to start? When your children leave, the emptiness in your home isn't just silent. It's a call from deep within, urging you to express things you've never said. You want to love yourself more, explore new joys, yet your mind keeps whispering, "You've neglected yourself for so long. Is it too late now?" Psychology shows that when emotions are suppressed for a long time, the body produces a form of silent stress, reducing focus and memory. This explains why many adults feel tongue-tied when learning English after midlife. The brain reacts as a defense mechanism, making it easy to feel discouraged or want to quit. But if you understand this mechanism, you realize your heart is trying to communicate, and practicing listening, reading, and speaking English is how you respond. I remember the first time I tried to read a passage longer than a page in English. At first, it felt like an invisible wall blocking all my emotions and confidence. But I decided not to give up. Every sentence, every word I repeated in front of the mirror, listening to my own voice, was a chance for my heart to speak. I began to see that learning English wasn't just a skill, it was the language of my emotions, a way for my heart to find freedom in the emptiness left by my children. For example, when I listened to slow English podcasts about adults learning English in Denmark, I realized they had experienced similar loneliness, but they turned it into motivation. I started keeping a journal in English, reading aloud each sentence, telling myself, "Every word I speak is a step forward, an answer to my heart." The combination of learning language and facing emotions creates a double effect. My brain adapts, focus improves, and the sense of emptiness gradually fades. The key is to listen to your heart. When it wants to speak, answer with small but consistent actions. Read a sentence, speak a passage, listen to audio, note a new word. Each step is a new rhythm of life, a piece of the puzzle turning loneliness into discovery, English into a companion, and most importantly, yourself into a more mature, self-loving version. Your heart is trying to speak, and you are the one who will hear it with patience and courage. The new love story begins. Have you ever realized that when one chapter ends, another quietly begins, almost without notice? The empty house after your children leave doesn't just echo silence. It whispers possibilities. That whisper is subtle, almost teasing. What if the love story you've been waiting for isn't about someone else, but about yourself? And here's the magic. Learning English becomes the unexpected hero in that story. Every word you speak, every sentence you understand, is like writing a new paragraph in a novel where you are the main character. I remember walking through the quiet streets of Copenhagen one evening, earbuds in, listening to slow English dialogues. At first it felt absurd, me, a middle-aged adult practicing pronunciation in the middle of a park. Passers-by glanced curiously, and I felt a twinge of self-consciousness. But then something shifted. I realized that this act, seemingly small and private, was my own declaration. I am still growing. I am still learning. I am still capable of love for myself and my life. Scientific studies support this. The adult brain retains neuroplasticity, meaning it can form new neural connections at any age. So each word you speak in English isn't just language practice. It's literally rewiring your brain for confidence, curiosity, and resilience. This is crucial because the empty nest can easily feel like a void, a place where purpose disappears. But when you intentionally fill that void with learning, exploration, and self-expression, a new love story begins. Not the romantic cliches you see in movies, but a deeper, authentic love for your own growth and freedom. Consider this example. I set a tiny daily goal, 10 minutes of speaking aloud in English. Some days it was painfully awkward. Sentences stumbled over each other. Pronunciation cracked. But gradually a rhythm emerged. My heart, which had been quiet for months, began to feel lighter, almost playful. Each completed sentence became a mini celebration, a note in the symphony of a life rediscovered. The love story wasn't about another person walking into my home. It was about me stepping into my own potential, and English became the language of that awakening. Here's the secret most people miss. Love doesn't always arrive through someone else's presence. Sometimes it begins in the spaces you've been avoiding, the empty rooms, the silent evenings, and grows through small, consistent actions. By speaking, listening, and reading English, you aren't just learning words. You are nurturing your courage, your voice, and ultimately your capacity to love your own story. The empty nest is no longer a void. It's the first page of a love story you are writing yourself, word by word, sentence by sentence, in your own voice. Rewriting yourself in English. Have you ever felt the strange thrill of starting over? Not in a new city, not in a new job, but within yourself? When the children leave, the routines that once defined you dissolve, and suddenly you have a blank page. And here's the extraordinary part. Learning English slowly, deliberately, becomes a tool to rewrite that page. Each sentence you read aloud, every word you repeat, is like laying a brick in a new version of yourself. One that is confident, curious, and unapologetically alive. I remember the first time I opened an English book after weeks of avoiding it. My heart raced. My mind whispered, "What's the point? You're too old to really get this." But I forced myself to read syllable by syllable, letting the words roll off my tongue. At first, my sentences stumbled, my pronunciation felt foreign even to myself. Yet, as I persisted, something remarkable happened. I began to recognize patterns, phrases, and sounds that my brain had once rejected. Step by step, repetition by repetition, I was not just learning a language, I was rewiring my brain, reclaiming my focus, and rewriting my narrative. Neuroscience calls this neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new neural connections at any age. The beauty of it is that the process mirrors life itself. Slow, deliberate practice builds resilience, confidence, and new ways of thinking. Practicing English became my mirror, reflecting the person I wanted to be. Someone who didn't need external validation, someone capable of curiosity and joy, and someone ready to embrace the next chapter of life. I started small. 10 minutes a day repeating sentences, listening to podcasts, or reading aloud. Each session felt almost like a conversation with myself. My inner voice, which had been quieted by years of parenting and routines, started speaking again. I laughed at mistakes, savored successes, and slowly, the silence of the empty nest transformed into a space of possibility. The lesson is profound. Rewriting yourself doesn't require grand gestures or overnight transformation. It begins with tiny, consistent actions. Learning English in this way is not just about fluency. It's about self-discovery, about proving to yourself that you are still capable, still vibrant, and still worthy of a full life. By the end of each session, I felt a subtle shift. The empty rooms no longer echoed loneliness. They resonated with growth, learning, and a quiet, profound joy. And that is the power of rewriting yourself in English. Every word is a step toward a new life, a new voice, and a new story only you can tell. Small words, big healing. Have you ever underestimated the power of a single word? When the house feels empty and the heart heavy, it's easy to think that small actions won't matter. Yet, in my journey, I discovered that tiny English words, spoken, written, repeated, could heal more than silence ever could. Each hello, each I understand, each thank you whispered to myself in English, became a thread stitching my heart back together, turning loneliness into a quiet sense of purpose. One evening, I decided to practice aloud in my living room. At first, my voice sounded weak, shaky, almost like a stranger's. But slowly I noticed something strange. Each word I uttered gave me courage. "Good morning," I said to myself, smiling. "I can do this," I whispered in English. It felt awkward, yes, but also exhilarating. My brain, responding to repetition and positive reinforcement, began forming new neural pathways. This is neuroplasticity at work again. Small words literally reshaping my mental landscape. I remember reading a short story in English, then trying to retell it aloud. Each sentence I managed was a mini victory. Each pause, each hesitation became a chance to observe and grow. The science behind it is fascinating. Speaking out loud engages multiple areas of the brain: memory, auditory processing, motor control, and emotion, creating a powerful feedback loop that strengthens not just language skills but emotional resilience. The surprising part? As I practiced, my feelings of emptiness began to soften. Words became more than letters. They became companions, little anchors in the quiet of the empty house. Every sentence spoken or read aloud was a gentle reminder. I am still here. I am still learning. I am still capable of love and growth. Even 10 minutes a day made a measurable difference in my mindset and my energy. This is the lesson I want to share. Healing doesn't always come in grand gestures. It often comes in the smallest, most deliberate acts. The word you repeat, the sentence you read aloud, the audio you listen to patiently. In the silence left by your children, these small actions can transform emptiness into opportunity, loneliness into discovery, and fear into confidence. English became my tool, my therapy, and my friend. And slowly, without even realizing it, the empty nest stopped feeling like an ending. It became the space where my heart learned to speak again. Becoming fluent in your new life. Have you ever noticed how fluency isn't just about language? It's about life? After the children leave, I realized that learning English slowly, clearly, and with intention mirrored the way I wanted to live. Deliberately, confidently, and fully present. Each word I spoke, each sentence I read aloud became a declaration that I was still capable of growth, still deserving of joy, and still able to create a meaningful life. Fluency wasn't the goal. Connection was, with myself, my thoughts, and the new life unfolding around me. I remember one morning in Copenhagen, sitting on a quiet bench by the canal, headphones on, practicing a simple dialogue. A couple walked past speaking Danish, and I felt a flicker of self-consciousness. But then I noticed the water glinting in the sunlight, and I laughed at myself. For the first time, learning English didn't feel like a chore or a test. It felt like a conversation with life itself. Every word I mastered was like reclaiming a piece of myself I hadn't realized I'd lost. Science shows that consistent practice rewires the brain for fluency. Listening, repeating, reading aloud, and speaking engage multiple neural pathways: language, motor skills, memory, and emotion, creating a full-bodied learning experience. For someone navigating the empty nest, this process is transformative. The brain not only acquires language but also rebuilds confidence, resilience, and curiosity. I felt the shift in small moments. Reading a paragraph without hesitation, understanding a sentence in a podcast instantly, or responding to myself in English spontaneously. Each tiny victory reinforced the idea that life, like language, can be relearned and reshaped. I also discovered that fluency in my new life wasn't about perfection. Mistakes became milestones, pauses became reflection, and repetition became rhythm. English became my companion, a mirror reflecting patience, persistence, and the joy of discovery. The empty nest no longer felt like a void. It became a playground for curiosity and self-expression. Here's the punchline. Fluency in language is a metaphor for life after the children leave. You aren't just speaking English. You are learning to speak yourself into existence, to claim your space, and to celebrate the freedom and possibility that the empty nest offers. Every word you practice, every sentence you master, is a step toward becoming fully alive again, in your own voice. Full heart, new voice. Finally, the moment comes when the empty nest no longer feels empty. You realize that the silence wasn't a punishment, it was an invitation. Each quiet evening, each word spoken aloud in English, each sentence read and repeated, has built something unexpected. A full heart and a new voice. The love story that began when your children left isn't about anyone else. It's about yourself, rediscovered through patience, persistence, and small acts of courage. I remember the first time I read a story aloud without stopping, without self-doubt. My voice felt strong, confident, alive. It was a strange, joyful revelation. The empty rooms echoed not loneliness but growth, learning, and the echo of my own laughter. This was my new rhythm, my new life, and English was the bridge connecting me to it. Every phrase I mastered became a celebration, every word a step toward embracing freedom and possibility. Psychology confirms what I felt intuitively. Learning a language while emotionally engaged strengthens both memory and emotional resilience. My brain had adapted, rewired, and expanded, and with it my heart had expanded too. The skills I gained, listening, reading, speaking, weren't just academic. They were deeply personal, helping me reclaim confidence, joy, and self-love. The lesson here is profound. The empty nest can be the start of the most beautiful chapter of your life. When your children leave, a new story begins. A story of self-discovery, growth, and love. English becomes more than words. It becomes a partner in this journey, a tool for healing, and a language of your own heart. Small steps, consistent practice, and the courage to keep going turn emptiness into fullness, silence into song, and hesitation into voice. So now, with the empty nest behind me, I speak, read, and listen in English with joy. I have a full heart, a new voice, and a life filled with possibility. And the truth is, this story is just beginning for me and for anyone willing to take that first word, that first sentence, that first step.